Da Vinci Code is a fact or fiction? Like, is it fact or fiction about the Bible? Okay, let me just rephrase that. The Da Vinci Code, is it fact or fiction about the Bible and Christ's experience? Is the Da Vinci Code demonic? So that is the question. Now, let's look at what the Da Vinci Code actually is. What is Da Vinci Code? Da Vinci Code is a book, was a novel that was published some years ago. I think excuse me. Yeah, it was published some 22 years ago. That's a long time, 2023. Sorry, 2003. All right. And, oh, excuse me. So Da Vinci Code was a book, a novel by a guy named Brown. His surname was Brown. Published in 2003, which said some pretty interesting things about Jesus Christ, his nature, and Christianity as a whole. Now, this book was initially, many people read it and say, oh, it's fiction. But then the writer of the book says it is not fiction, that is very true. Now, what does this story entail? This story entails, it was written by Dan Brown. The story entails, as I said, some stories about Jesus Christ and his nature. Basically, idea of pursuing an holy grail. Holy grail, essentially, what's it called? It's like a secret knowledge, something that has to be sought by people to attain to the true knowledge of Jesus Christ. So the book summarily just makes some claims like, Jesus Christ was a man and not God. Jesus Christ was not God. Jesus Christ got Mary Magdalene pregnant. It's funny. Jesus Christ married Mary Magdalene and had a child with her when he was crucified. So Mary Magdalene was pregnant with Jesus's baby when he was crucified. And then the apostles were now jealous of Mary because she was carrying the baby of their master. And so they were jealous of her role among the group. So because they were jealous of her, she had to run away to France, where her descendants will we eventually now become French royalty. So you see that French royalty were descendants of Jesus, essentially. So, however, the apostles, because of the jealousy that they had towards Mary Magdalene, they now changed church. They changed the message of Christ to make the church patriarchal and suppress women. So they tried to destroy any documents or evidence that went against their claims that, the church is patriarchal and they are suppressing women. But then there's now a secret society called the Priory of Sion that passed on the truth of Mary Magdalene to its followers, which included an impressive list of scientists and all those things. And a number of these guys, part of the people who were in the Priory of Sion, or the secret society that had the true knowledge of Mary Magdalene and Jesus and their love affair. Among them were Isaac Newton and Leonardo da Vinci, right? Which is why the book is named Da Vinci Code, right? So, and the writer claims that Da Vinci was a painter, right? Not painter of house, like art, painter. And Da Vinci made quite some impressive painting, like the Last Supper, this illustration of the body of the anatomy of a man that is used in anatomy textbooks today. That's Da Vinci. So he did the Last Supper, and Da Vinci now claims that, sorry, I said Da Vinci, the writer Dan Brown of Da Vinci Code claims that Da Vinci left some clues from his knowledge from the Priory of Sion, which is the um, secret society. He left some clues in his artwork, especially the Last Supper painting, to show that Jesus actually had affairs with Mary, and Jesus was trying to show everybody that um, that Mary Magdalene was his wife and all of those things. But he said everything that he wrote in that book was a fact and it was true. It was not fiction. At least he said it was fiction, at least. It's still very problematic because it's attacking the Christian faith. But at least we'll know that he just said it's fiction, it's not true. But he said it was fact. So let's check. Are they actually true? Is it fact or fiction? First of all, from some of the details I've already mentioned, first of all, he said that they fled, Mary Magdalene fled to France. When we look into history, when we look into the okay, before I even go, because that'll be putting the cart before the horse. So let me put a pin in that. When we look into history, right, a number of the claims that this man, Dan Brown, made in Da Vinci Code were not true. For example, the secret society, the Priory of Sion, passed on the truth to its followers and included Leonardo da Vinci and Isaac Newton. But guess what? The Priory of Sion, right, had his what's it called now? Sorry, give me a second. The Priory of Sion was not founded until 1956. Right. It was not founded until okay. Was not founded until 1956. And Leonardo da Vinci died rather in 1519. So the Priory of Sion started 1956. Leonardo died in 1519. How was Leonardo part of the Priory of Sion? This story does not add up. Isaac definitely died way before that time as well. Right. So that's not true. And he said that the person that was sitting high, Mary Adewi, they said that the person sitting next to Jesus in the Last Supper painting was Mary Magdalene. But of course, right, we know that it had to be his disciples. Right. And I would address the claim that I said the church was patriarchal and was oppressing women. But guess what? When you look into history, the church was actually very radical. The church was counter patriarchy. The church was very radical in actually elevating women's rights because, yes, the society that the early church, in fact, the time of Jesus, dwelt in, was a very patriarchal society. Women's testimony was not accepted in court. Women, were not really seen as much. But then the Bible includes the testimony of women to describe that Jesus rose from the dead. You can't be anti-patriarchal than that because they were not conforming to the patriarchal society. In the Bible, right, Christianity claims, right, which according to Dan Brown in Da Vinci Code, that it's oppressing women. Christianity claimed at that time, think about it, at that time it was radical. So Apostle Paul to be writing that which is one of the apostles of Jesus Christ, that that Dan Brown in Da Vinci Code said they were suppressing women. This was the guy who wrote that there is neither slave nor free, there is neither Jew or Greek, there's neither male or female, but everybody are one. All of us are one in Jesus Christ. So Apostle Paul was saying that we are all equal in Jesus. You can't get more anti-patriarchal than that. Suppressing women, that does not sound like suppressing women, especially when you think about the time of Jesus, the time of the early church. It was a radical thing to say that men were equal to women because men were not considered equal to women. So in saying that, it's a fact that they are suppressing women as what we have today, is not true. It's not true. And there are other other factual inconsistencies in history and fact in the book. For example, it says that the Dead Sea Scrolls are a library of documents that we found that inform the manuscript of the Bible. So they were found in the 1950s, but Dead Sea Scrolls were found in 1947. It says the documents found at Nag Hammadi were scrolls, but documents found there were actually bounded books. Um, it says that the Last Supper, it got the detail of the Last Supper wrong. Of when I say the Last Supper, the painting by Leonardo da Vinci. So he got the detail of the material that was used for it wrong. He got history facts wrong. For example, he said that Constantine, I'm not really sure how to pronounce that emperor's name. Constantine was the emperor of Rome. I think in the so at some point in the first century, he said he made Christianity the state religion because it was growing in popularity and he was a very good businessman. But anybody who looks into the Roman Empire and looks into history, even outside of the Bible, just look into history. Of course, the Bible was already existed by the first century. Anybody that looks into history will know that Constantine never made Christianity the emperors that the what was it called? He never made Christianity the empire's official religion. He only became a Christian and reduced persecution of Christian. He made Christian legal. So before Constantine became a Christian, right, Christianity was illegal. You could not practice Christianity. They will kill Christians and put them in prison. But when Constantine became a Christian, because he had a vision and saw the sign of the cross, right, of the name of Jesus, the cross, and he heard that by this sign you will succeed. So he put the cross on every of his soldiers' shield, and they won the war and they won the war after that. So he became a Christian because of that. And so he now legalized Christianity. So that means he took away the persecution or the illegality. So he didn't make that's different from it's not the same thing as saying that he now said everybody in this empire must be a Christian. That's not what he did. He only stopped them from killing and arresting Christians simply because they were Christians. So he increased the tolerance, and that was not even everywhere, because there were still some parts of Rome, and even during his time, that they were persecuting Christians. So that cannot be further from the truth. And then, we have already past time, so I'll just quickly wrap this up. And then, there now goes some other claims that Jesus was a man, Jesus was not God, but that's not true because Jesus claimed to be God. In what's it called? Jesus came to be God in the Bible. Jesus, even before, so in the Da Vinci Code, Dan Brown claimed that before the Council of Nicaea, which took place in the first century, Jesus was viewed by his followers as a mortal prophet. But that's not true. In fact, the reason why there was a Council of Nicaea was that many people believed Jesus to be God, but a small sect of people, a growing sect of people called the Arians, said Jesus was not God. And that's why the Council of Nicaea. So right from inception, his disciples had already recognized him as God. So that can be further from the truth. Jesus came to be God, and the disciples recognized and reported that as well. The Bible called Jesus God, John 1:1, and repeat examples in the Bible. Early church fathers before the Council of Nicaea that happened in the first century, right from the second century, had been calling Jesus God. Ignatius in the second century, Clement in the second century, Justin Martyr in the second century, Irenaeus in the second century, Tertullian in the third century, Origen in the third century, Novatian, all of these guys before the Council of Nicaea had been calling Jesus God. So that's not true. So the Da Vinci Code, can it be fact or fiction about the Bible? Is not true. Many of it, if not all of the things I claim about the Bible are lies. Can it be demonic? I don't know. But it can be demonic in the sense of, there's something called doctrine. There's a doctrine of demons as mentioned in the Bible. And this is doctrine of demons essentially is going away from the truth and teaching contrary to the message of scripture, essentially. That's the doctrine of demons. In that sense, because this is like the Bible is going like this, Da Vinci Code is going the opposite way. In that sense, it could be demonic, that's but yeah, but Da Vinci Code is not true about Christianity at all. I'm not just clear about history, about a lot of other facts at all. I don't know how it got popular because people don't read history, right? Because a lot of people actually believe. I remember in secondary school, I had a classmate that actually was reading the Da Vinci Code and was confused or was asking questions like that, but it's not true. Da Vinci Code is not true about Christ. He got history wrong, got Christianity wrong. It's just over the bar. Ogba penalty or throwing it straight. If you don't understand that, don't worry, it's Greek, but it's over the bar.